appreciate the mundane things of life.
The need for people, the need for each other, and the need for God.
To show God's love by being his hands and feet to those who are struggling and finding life very difficult.
That personal interaction with other people and family really matters.
2020 has taught me we get one life, use it well to love others.
Spending time in prayer and listening out for God's voice.
To try and slow down and to try and hear God's voice, not only when I read my Bible, but during the rest of the day.
To be more respectful, more considerate, more caring, more loving and more faithful.
How important it is to belong and be part of a church family. Whatever age we are, we all need each other to pray, to encourage and to cheer each other on.
That God is always faithful to his children.
The importance of prioritising time with my friends and my family.
To appreciate the time I spend with other people.
Through these challenging times that God can still build his church.
My relationship with God is the most important thing in my life, and prayer. Thank you, God.
2020 has taught me how to appreciate life and to share it with other people.
To pause and enjoy the simpler things in life.
But unexpected change is not necessarily a bad thing.
The value of community.
To slow down and be present.
The importance of family and prioritising strong, long-lasting relationships.
That my life group can be as precious as my family.
To trust in God and to take one day at a time.
To lean harder than ever before on God.
That I can still remain thankful no matter what life throws at me.
Never to buy a year planner.
That with the community, it's not just about knowing who's in your street, it's actually being involved and talking to them and getting to know them a bit more.
That whilst I really appreciate a nice hot shower and a warm, clean bed, what really sustains me is the beauty of God's creation.
How to rest in the busyness of life.
How important family are.
How to properly find rest in God.
That every day is a gift from God and should be treated as such.
The importance of the relationships around me.
And 2020 has taught me that God's grace is sufficient in all that we go through.
Despite what you may think, what you may feel, you can trust God. God is good. Through the midst of your pain, he's the one who's walking with you.
That we shouldn't try to control everything by ourselves, but trust in God and his plan.
About resting God no matter what the situation is, and it has helped me a lot to put my faith in God into practice.
Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to Lifechurch Online. 2020 is now officially over, and though it wasn't the year many of us planned or certainly predicted, what we do know is that God was with us and God was working his plans and his purposes through our lives over the last 12 months. We have much to be thankful for. We've learned many lessons along the way, and next weekend I'm going to be launching a new series where I'll be unpacking what I believe to be the biggest and most important lesson we need to learn from 2020 that we need to carry over into 2021. But this morning we're privileged to have Ian Green bringing the word for us. Ian and his wife Judith have been part of the church here for almost 30 years now, and later this month they are leaving Bedworth. They are moving on to pastures new, so we're privileged to hear a final message from Ian as a Lifechurch partner. You're going to love what he's got to share with us a little bit later on. We're also going to hear from our youth pastor Gemma, who's going to be sharing some things that our young people can connect into over the coming weeks. But here we are, still in the grip of the pandemic, having just transitioned into tier 4 with many restrictions all around us. But as we stand on the brink of a whole new year, I want to encourage each and every one of us this morning to face the future with faith. Oswald Chambers said this. He said that faith doesn't always know where it's being led, but it knows and loves the one who is leading the way. And what we do know this morning is that Jesus is leading the way. He goes before us. He is with us. He's working through us. And our hope, our trust, and our confidence and our faith are entirely in Him. So this morning, we're going to start the year as we mean to go on, by being thankful, by being full of praise and worship and adoration, and we're going to declare together our faith in Him, knowing that He holds our future in the palm of His hands. So come on, church, let's worship together with our first song this morning.
It was my tomb. was my sin till I met you. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. Now your mercy has saved my soul. Now your freedom is all that I know. The old made new, Jesus, when I met you. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. I needed rescue, my sin was heavy, but chains break at the weight of your glory. I needed shelter, I was an orphan. You called me a citizen of heaven. When I was broken, you were my healing. Your love is the air that I'm breathing. I have a future, my eyes are open, 'cause when you called my name, I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day, your glorious day.
Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well. Now I know things are looking a little bit different for our youth ministry at the moment, but we have got an Instagram page that we would love for you to follow. On there we have started to put up some new content where we'll be updating you, we'll be encouraging our young people and having loads and loads of fun along the way. This is just one way that you can connect in with our youth ministry and see all that the team are doing for our youth. We always appreciate your support and would love to see you there encouraging our young people going forward. Maybe there'll be some fun for you to enjoy too. So guys, I hope to see you there. Please follow us at LegacyYouth_Bedworth to see all that we're doing. Hope to see you there and hope to see you soon.
Good morning, Lifechurch. So good to be with you today. Very happy to kick off this new year with some thoughts that hopefully will be helpful to us as we sojourn through this next few months. This has been a remarkable year as we look back on 2020. There have been incredible challenges and yet incredible victories too. We have heard words that we probably have not heard as many times before in our whole lives as this year. The term unprecedented has been batted around so many times. We're probably sick to death of hearing that phrase. And so this past year, it has had incredible challenges that has had on us personally as a congregation, as a community of faith, as a nation, and yet here we are at the verge of a brand new year, and we have to decide what kind of year are we going to have, how are we going to tackle this coming year. And I want to share with you just a few thoughts this morning that we have been created for more, developing an abundance mentality. In John chapter 10 and verse 10 it says this, "The thief comes only to steal, kill and destroy, but I have come that you might have life and that you might have it abundantly." What a remarkable verse in remarkable times. We're not going to minimize the challenges that many homes and families have faced in the last 12 months. 71,000 deaths. Very challenging. We have had unbelievable social challenges. We have increasing unemployment. We have huge challenges to our economy. We're not going to downplay that. But is it possible? Is it possible as the people of God that we recognize the difficulty? We see the challenges, we see the mountains, we see the giants, yet is there a perspective that we can put in our hearts at the beginning of a brand new year that would make us more than conquerors? Not excluded from difficulty, not excluded from problems, not excluded from challenges, but have a mentality that would actually cause us to come through triumphantly and be a blessing to those in our worlds. It's not all been bad. It's not all been bad in the last 12 months. I think many closes, many communities, many streets have said, wow, this has been a great year to get to know our neighbors. We've actually finally spoke to one another. We actually know people's names rather than nodding. We've had conversations with people. And community sensitivity has seemingly increased in a remarkable way. I was reading earlier in the week in the Times newspaper that many Gen Z, the young people between late teens and early 20s, are surfing the internet and are actually finding faith in Jesus at remarkable numbers. Not everything has been bad. When we consider what the church has been able to execute over the last few weeks, it's been unbelievable. And I'll share a little bit more about that as we think about created for more, developing an abundance mentality. God is the God of more than enough. One of the names for God is El Shaddai. It's found in Genesis chapter 17, El Shaddai, the God who is more than enough. And abundance is in his name. Abundance is in his nature. It's his covenant that he makes with us, that we would have the spirit of overcoming. Overcoming not just so that we have a better life, so that we can create a better life for other people in our world. You see, when we have a scarcity mentality, we close off options for God to release his abundance to us. When we're saying what we don't have, what we can't do, what limitations are upon us, then what we begin to do is we begin to shrink our lives to a below manageable amount, so that the joy that life should bring, it no longer brings, because we can only see the dark side of things. I want us to understand this morning that God has an incredible life for us, an incredible future for us as a church, as a community, as individuals. I believe that these next few months and possibly the next few years are going to be incredible days for you, for your family, and also for the kingdom of God in our world. You see, abundance is a mentality. In Ephesians chapter 3 and verse 20, it says this, "Now unto him who is able to do exceedingly, abundantly, beyond that all we can ask or think, according to the power that works within us." His ability is beyond all that we can think and ask. So when we look at the difficult faces, the difficult challenges that we face, some of us watching this right now may be facing unemployment. Some may be facing incredible difficult health issues. Some may be facing educational challenges as your children have spent so much time off school. And yet, as we begin to tap into God's abundance, as we begin to tap into God's thinking, we begin to understand there is probably a different way and a better way that we've not yet considered ourselves. But when we go to scarcity, we cut ourselves off at possibilities. When we run to God and say, okay, God, this is the situation. How difficult is this? How this looks impossible. But for you, we know nothing is impossible. And so I want to encourage you today to begin to have abundance thinking. Rather than saying what we don't have, what we can't do, what's no longer possible. Why don't we begin to address those issues with a different question? Rather than a statement, maybe a question. What if? What if? I remember when our children was much smaller, and one day, I think it was Morgan came home from school, and he wanted to go into the school skiing trip. And the school skiing trip was a pretty expensive gig. I think it was, even in those days, it was about £1,000, which for us was an enormous amount of money at that time. And it would have been so easy to go to a scarcity mentality and says, you know, Morg, we don't have that kind of money. We're missionaries. We can't afford that kind of lifestyle. Instead of saying that, we decided to pose a different question to the problem. And we says, what if Morgan wanted to go on that skiing trip? What if? It was a big problem to us. What if? What do we have to do for that to be executed? And so we started to chat as a family, and one of the things we said to Morgan, so okay, Morgan, it's £1,000. Well, how much can you raise towards that? He says, well, I could probably get a paper round, I could do this, I could do that. Okay, then me and Mum will do what we can do. And we began to see what was an enormous problem, but we asked it a different question. What if it was a good thing for Morgan to go on that skiing trip? After 2 or 3 weeks, he comes home, he says, Dad, no one's going on that skiing trip from our class. I don't really want to go. But the challenge for us as a family was a great challenge and a great learning possibility. We began to apply abundance thinking. Instead of saying we can't, we began to say, well, what if we wanted to do that? What would we have to do? Then there's abundance giving. Facilitating abundance giving. Abundance impacts our giving capacity. Now, we've seen this over the past few weeks in our own church. We've seen people give time like we've never seen people give time before. People have volunteered. It would be interesting to discover in the month of December what the volunteer hours of our church was in that period of time. I reckon it'd be multiples of thousands of volunteer hours have been given to the church so that the church could bless the community. And as a result of people finding time, the time was already there, but they prioritized their time. They put other things in front of what would normally be in front so that they could actually serve Jesus, serve the community, and see the kingdom of God displayed in a very remarkable and practical way. Did you realize that over 500 hampers was given out in the last few days? Did you realize over 500 stockings were sent to vulnerable families, to emergency services, to care homes, to funeral directors? Did you realize that over 80 cooked meals was delivered to the elderly and to those who were isolated? 75 pre-packed Christmas meals to the vulnerable families. Somewhere in the region of 2,500 to 3,000 people We're absolutely blessed and helped in this Christmas time. And do you know what? It couldn't have happened through the church staff. There would not be enough capacity. As good and as hard and as long as they work, that would have not been possible. But what happened? People discovered abundance given. They decided to reorientate their priorities and find time to be a blessing and to be a help to people in this church and in the community, and God's name has been praised because of that. There may be others that you can think of new ways to display and give your talents. We have an incredibly, highly talented church with many gifts. And I'm speaking to you now. You have many gifts. And all the gifts, they obviously can't be displayed on the platform. But other people have other gifts of caring, other gifts of mercy. Maybe some people have a great gift of helping people to budget. Maybe other people have gifts to helping people how to feed a family in a cost-effective way. Lots of practical ways, gifts that maybe if you prioritize your giving, you would find that your life would begin to multiply. And so I want to encourage you to think about giving. I want you thinking about giving your time and giving your talents as we enter 2021. Let this be a year of the multiplication of the abundance of your giving. And then I want us to think about the abundance of doing. One of the comments we often hear said to us is that, oh, I'm too busy to do anything else. Well, do you know what? The reality is we all have 24 hours in the same day. And we just have to decide how we're going to spend those 24 hours. And of course, some are already dictated to us. We have to go to work, the jobs we have to do in the house. There's lots of practical things that we have to do. But the rest of the time, 3, 4, 5 hours a day, we decide what we are going to do with that time. And I know in this particular time, lots of people have actually decided to invest in themselves. And one of the encouragements I would say to you in this particular period of time, and particularly at this time of the year, where oftentimes people say, well, this is going to be a year of fresh goals for me. I see all those runners in the church. I'm going to do the couch to 5K. I'm going to get up to 5K and run the couch to 5K. Others say, well, I'm going to lose 15 pounds. Others, well, I'm going to get a more disciplined life and I'm going to read the Bible more and pray more. Do you know what? My encouragement to you is to think about none of those things. My encouragement to you is don't set goals of achievement. Set goals for personal development. So instead of thinking, I'm going to run 5K, say, no, this year I'm going to get more healthy. I'm going to get more healthy in my eating, more healthy in my exercise, and have a broader view of actually doing stuff. I think this can be a great year when we learn to invest in ourselves. I know for me, the last 12 months, most of my work life, for 30 years, I've spent traveling 14 to 17 days a month, largely internationally. When that came to an abrupt halt in the middle of March, you begin to ask yourself, what can I do now? Can I do anything now? My delivery is standing in front of people. My delivery is a one-on-one mentoring. My delivery is creating team dynamics. How can I do that? And yet, over the last 7 or 8 or 9 months, I've begun to find there are new ways of doing things and different ways of doing things. And I've actually discovered that I'm actually doing more and not less than I was doing before, because I've discovered there are different ways of how we can deliver what we feel is important into our lives. During this last few months, developed a whole new curriculum to help people become community transformers personally, through corporate environments, through NGOs, through churches. And it's just been exciting to see all that come to pass. Probably would have not given it that intense attention if I'd been on the road, jumping on and off aeroplanes all that time. But I want to encourage you that you are created for more. You are loaded with potential. And we have to take this time, pause the button, stop and think about how we're going to grow our personal lives in a way that we can be a greater blessing to people. I believe that as we begin to look for doors of opportunity will be knocking on our life, and we won't be so much as knocking on the door of opportunity. There are just a few simple steps I want to give you to understand how you can create more for your life, how you can be a greater blessing, how you can be a greater help, how you can be a greater dad, how you can be a greater mum, how you can be a greater contributor to the life of this community, how you can be a blessing at work. There are a few things that we need to integrate into our lives that will help us. Number one, understand if you want to create more, abundance will cost you something. Abundance will cost you something. Of course, doing nothing costs you something, in that there is the loss of not doing as well as the loss of not gain by doing something. But abundance will cost you something. It always will, but it always produces a tremendous result. And so I want to ask you this morning, are you prepared for a fresh cost to come into your life? It may be reevaluating your diary. It may be looking at your relationships, how maybe you can invest more in your family. I remember when our kids were smaller, one of the things that I tried to do, of course I was traveling quite a lot, but one of the things I tried to do was at least have a monthly date with my children. And that was fantastic for me as a dad, and I think it was quite fantastic for our kids as well, as we hear them talk about that, to have exclusive time. It may well be that may stop you from doing something that's pleasurable or nice or something that you'd like to do, but as you begin to think of what kind of family do you want to create, what kind of home do you want to have, it's going to cost you something. It doesn't just happen. Secondly, abundance will require you to be a lifelong learner. A lifelong learner. Here I am, 64 years of age. I know I look a lot younger. I just can't help it. It's just good makeup that Ben Emery puts on me, and it's all good. But you know what? I decided a long time ago, I don't have everything in the bag, and those who know me will know that I don't have everything bagged. But this I do know. I am committed to being a lifelong learner. If you are committed to being a lifelong learner, you will stay fresh in your personality. Your relationships will stay vibrant. You will become active in your mind and active in your actions. And different people, I understand, learn different ways. I love books. I love to read books. For other people, your way of taking information may be quite different to that. It may be watching stuff on YouTube. It may be in discussion groups. It may be in a book club where you read together and you share what you're learning. I want to encourage you that if you want to understand of how much more you are created for, then you have to be committed to become a lifelong learner. And a lifelong learner will put life into your spirit and life into many of your relationships. The third thing is this: if you want to create more, abundance will require you to change. Abundance will require you to change. Change, wow. That's a difficult thing, isn't it? It certainly is not always an easy thing to embrace. But unless the future that you see is greater than the present that you're enjoying, you probably won't change. I've discovered, having vision for numbers of areas of your life, for whether it's your marriage, whether it's your family, whether it's your business, whether it's your career, whether it's your church engagement, whether it's some area of interest that you might have, unless you have a greater vision for your future than you do for your present, you probably won't change. But abundance, if you want to have abundance, if you want to understand that you were created for more, then it will require change. And then fourthly, abundance will require new thoughts. New thoughts. Are you bored with your thoughts? Are you bored with the same things coming out of your mouths? One of my children said to me before I came and did this talk, says, "Dad, please don't tell any of your jokes." I says, "Which one?" She says, Sophie says, those boring old jokes that you keep on saying all the time. People are tired of them. And sometimes we are tired of our own phrases that come out of our mouths because we are not prepared to inject new thinking into our world. And new thinking comes into our world sometimes with new relationships, new information, attempting to do new things. All of that will help to create abundance in our lives. Fifthly, abundance will require new ways of doing stuff. Stuff that maybe are regimented for you, maybe stuff that are ingrained in your daily life patterns, but sometimes they become meaningless, or they become less life-giving. And so we have to find new ways of doing things. Sometimes it's like that, even with our daily devotions, our daily time with Jesus. Sometimes we have to find a new way of doing that. For numbers of years, I changed a different Bible translation that I read each year, just so that I got some freshness, some new perspective, some new ideas coming to me as I read the same scriptures but with a different translation. Sometimes you have to decide, I'm not a morning person. Maybe that's not the best time for me to do that stuff. Well, find the best time when it is to do that stuff. But what abundance will require, it will require that what is critically important and essential to you, that you find new ways of doing it. And then lastly, the sixth idea, or the sixth part of developing abundance is simply this: be committed to the process. Be committed to the process. You know what? Change never comes quickly. Change never happens rapidly for most of us. And sometimes we wish God would wave his wand and some dynamic change would take place in our lives. Occasionally that does happen. But in the normal run of life, it doesn't happen like that. Change is a progressive thing. And for change to be progressive, you have to be committed to the process. I think I heard someone say once, it takes 6 weeks to establish a new habit or a new process. Do that thing every day for 5 to 6 weeks, and you find a new pattern starts to emerge in your life. And so what am I saying at the close of today is this, is that I believe that we have been created for more. And just on a personal note, we have felt that very, very deeply. And 8 or 10 weeks ago, as I was praying, I said to the Lord, I believe you've got more for me, but I really don't know what to do. I really don't know what to do. And I felt the Lord say to me, then you need to become self-disruptive. And so we thought about that for a little while, and one of the applications for that was we felt, okay, well then let's put up our house for sale. We had tried to move out of the area 12 years ago, moved to Canada, and that didn't work out at all. And so we have seen our children being blessed in this church. We've had significant support from you guys as a community of faith, and we felt that we've tried to sow back into that community, but we were beginning to sense that in our personal lives, in our ministry lives, that God had something more, and that may need a new location. And so we put our house up for sale, and shock of all shocks, it's sold to a cash buyer in 5 weeks. And of course, that was before we had all the announcements about COVID and the restrictions, and we'd kind of had this idea that maybe we would travel for a year. I can work remotely, Sophie can work remotely, we can go almost anywhere, well, within Europe. But now all those doors have kind of closed on us at this present moment in time. But you know what? We have started on a journey. We've began an adventure. We know it's going to be great, and we know it's probably not going to be easy, and it's not going to be plain sailing. But you know what? We're more interested in being more, so that we can give more, so that we can create more, that we can be a greater blessing to the people that we interface with. And so we've started on our journey. And although we've been here 30 years, we feel as if we're right at the beginning of another journey. Now, some people said to me, you know what, man, you guys should be thinking of just slowing down. Well, I'm not thinking of slowing down. I'm filled with vision for the next 7 to 10 years of what I feel that the Lord wants us to do. And you know what? It's taking a step of faith. It's going out of our comfort zone. And I want to encourage you, whatever that means to you. It may not mean selling your house. It may not mean moving out the area. It may mean some other simple adjustments in your life. But remember this, you were created for more, you were designed for more, and God has more for you. God bless you. So good to be with you.
Face to face with the one who made us, and your love pulls us deeper in. With a spark you lit up creation, speaking life to us ever since. You're the Lord of all.
Well, thank you for joining us this morning. Ian, thank you so much for your word. Thank you for stirring faith within us for our future. Please know that Life Church will be praying for you and your beautiful family as you embark on this new and exciting adventure together. I just want to mention a couple of things before we finish our service this morning. Next Sunday, the 10th of January, we will be reopening for in-person services. I realise that we are now in Tier 4, but the government guidelines stipulate that places of worship are still entitled to open. I realise that some people won't feel ready to return to church quite yet within the current climate, and that is completely understandable. That is completely cool. But if you are ready and you feel you want to gather with God's people to worship once more, we will be open again from next Sunday morning, and you can book in for our in-person services from tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock through our homepage online. Also want to mention that from the 11th to 15th of January, it is our week of prayer and fasting. We really want to start the year together as God's people, seeking God first, seeking His face, not with a list of petitions, but simply to gather and enjoy His presence. We'll be sending some more information in the coming week about how you can participate in that, but please mark those dates on your calendar, the 11th to the 15th of January for our week of prayer and fasting. Church, we love you dearly. We know that things are still so uncertain and so changeable all around us. But what we do know is that God is with us. Our hope and our confidence is entirely in Him. And this year is going to be a great year, regardless of what goes on around us. Church, stay safe. Hope to see you very, very soon.